Have you ever wanted to start a new project, a writing project, or maybe you just have a long essay that you haven't started yet that's due next week? Do you have a long project that you've wanted to start and you don't know where to start even? You don't even know where to begin, but you really want to do this project? Well, you're not alone. All of us have been there. So today, we're going to talk about the 7 steps, and I'm going to walk you through each one for how to write a story. Hi, and welcome to my channel. My name is Kammi, and this is Flash University, where you get tips every week for how to write better, how to level up your writing. There's not a better way to say that. So in Lewis Carroll's infamous Alice in Wonderland, Alice at one point is lost, and she doesn't know where to go. And she asks the Cheshire, that's a hard word apparently, Cheshire cat, which road she should take. And his answer is, if you don't know where you want to go, then it doesn't matter which road you take. Haha, you have to say the quote correctly when you're reading it, when you're quoting it. But essentially, it doesn't matter how to get there if you don't care where you're going, right? So you have to know where you want to go. Do you want to write a story? Is that your goal? Well, if you do, then here are your steps. Here's your road to take. Step number 1 sounds blah, right? But it is crucial. You have to decide what kind of story you want to tell. Now, as you decide that, then all these other steps make more sense, and not make more sense, but are easier to do if you know. So if you're writing a sci-fi, you're not going to have, I don't know, a centaur in it, because a centaur is fantasy. If you are writing a romance, you're not going to have, I don't know, maybe you'll have fighting, but you get my point. The different genres and categories are all uniquely different. The word count is different. The reader expectation is different. How much reality versus, Brandon Sanderson calls it the real with the strange mixed in. How much real and how much strange is all different based on what you're trying to write. So it's really important, step number 1 is to know what kind of story you want to write. And step number 2 is to know your audience. So think of your ideal reader. Is your ideal reader in elementary school because you're writing a picture book? Is your ideal reader in high school because you're writing a drama for high school girls? Is your ideal reader a stay-at-home mom? Is your ideal reader someone who loves strange, which would be, all of us that love science fiction and fantasy? Who is your ideal reader? Are they male? Are they female? Are they 12? Are they 40? Now, this is really important, and a lot of writers say that their book is for everybody. Not a lot, but some say that their book is for everybody. Now, if you say that your book is for everyone, then it won't fit into a category. It will not be picked up by a literary agent, and it will not be sold in stores. And literary agents won't pick up something that someone claims is for everybody because they can't sell it. Even if they love it, it doesn't fit in a category. Categories aren't meant to box you in. They're meant to give you the opportunity to be put on a nice, neat bookshelf where somebody who's looking for that specific thing is going to go find your book. Now, if you write a book for everybody, anybody can read it, well, then nobody will, because nobody's looking for it. If I go to the store for romance, I want romance. If I go to the store for literary fiction, I'm looking for literary fiction, right? I'm looking on that shelf in that genre, and it's really important to know that. Plus, when you pick your ideal reader, it changes. Now, I don't know if you've ever read Brandon Mull. I did say I love science fiction and fantasy, and I've already mentioned 2 fantasy authors. But when he wrote Fablehaven, he had, you can find this on YouTube, I'm not lying, he had intended for this book to be YA and had but had changed the age of the characters because it didn't make sense, and it ended up being a middle grade, but you can read the YA voice throughout. So that's something actually that I enjoy, and that's something that is rarely done successfully. I only know of one other author who wrote in a voice other than her intended audience. So you really want to target that audience because they're going to use different words. You don't get a 5-year-old using the same words as a college graduate, right? Probably not. Maybe some of their words, but it's going to be more simplistic. Or maybe it's a complex book, but it's light and fluffy, versus something that really takes on some big world issue and wants to solve it, right? The words are going to be different. The audience is going to be different. So it's really important in step number 2 to know who you're speaking to. Now, step number 3, there is a Pixar prompt. Yep, I said that right. If you go to, and I'll put the link below, the blog is The Right Practice. I think, that's embarrassing. The writer of The Right Practice. Please, no one kill me. Don't make me cry in the comments, okay? So, I don't even know how the writer of this blog came across the Pixar prompt. I think they said that they knew someone who had worked for Pixar, and they shrink everything down into one sentence. So if you can write, once upon a time, blank, until one day, blank, and there's more steps than that, but if you can write it in a very simple form, then you know, even, this is for plotters or pantsers, or plantsers. I'm a plantser. I do a little bit of both. But this is for really, really great for people who are pantsers. Just write one sentence. And it's a really long sentence, granted, but it's one sentence that tells you who the main character is, what happened, how it affected them, and then how they solved the problem. That's all it is. That's all it is. And then you take that and you expand it. So tip number 3 is use the Pixar quote for basic outline of the story. Very, very, very rough basic. And that can be changed. But if you don't know where you're going, then it doesn't matter which road you take, right? So at least have a rough outline of where you're going so that your book doesn't end up aimless, which is a common, I want to say mistake, but that's not the right word. It is a common struggle for writers who are pantsers. So next would be tip number 4, and just write it. Just throw all your fear and all of your procrastination out the window. I see you procrastinating. I hear you. I raise you one. I don't know. I got nothing. But don't procrastinate. Just write. Don't be afraid. Just the first draft is supposed to suck. You hear a lot of writers say that because it really kind of does. The first draft is not your best work because that's not the point. It's not perfection. It's to get it out and then to fix it later, okay? And then your next step is it's okay. I can use words. Step 6 is to write without fear and edit without mercy. Have you ever heard that expression? You write it without fear in that you just are all in. You're not worried about the mistakes you're making. You're not worried about how anyone's going to react to it. You're feeling something, or you're being driven by a goal, and you just get it out. Get it out of you until you're all done. And then edit without mercy means you take a break. Some authors take months of a break. Some just take a couple days. Even taking a couple days it's like when you eat something, and have you ever eaten an orange and then tried to brush your teeth? That does not taste good. Unless you think that tastes good. And then you're weird. It does not taste good. Okay. My mom likes mint in her orange juice. She's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. That's gross. Tangent. So I totally lost my train of thought. Crash, burn, edit without mercy. You take a break, and it's like allowing your mouth to, they have those palate cleansers. It's like cleansing your palate, but for writing. So when you are so involved, and when you're writing without fear, and when you're really in that moment, you don't think objectively. You're not going to see your mistakes. First of all, you're going to read right over them. Even when there's a glaring spelling error, you might miss it and be embarrassed about it later. I've done that. But the point is to have fresh eyes. And so when you take a couple days, a couple weeks, or even for some authors, a couple months off, and you come back to your writing, you see it with new eyes, and you're able to really invest in it as if you are an editor. Be really clear-minded about it. And then tip number 7, this is sign language. Old habits, they die hard. Tip number 7 is to have a critique partner. Now, these are hard to find sometimes, but they are essential to good writing, because we, as much as we take a break, as much as we pour our hearts into it, as much work as we put into it, we're not going to find every single error. And we're only one person who views something one way. And even if we are catching our mistakes, we're not going to catch the tunnel vision that we have. We're trying to say something. We need to ask somebody else if they heard it. I'm trying to say this. Did you hear that? Did you this, or did you hear something else? It's really important. They're going to catch the errors. They're going to tell you about your voice. They're going to tell you what worked. If you have a good one, get a good one. What works and what needs work, right? That's constructive criticism. Now, I recommend 2 to 3 critique partners. And that means you give and take, right? So if you're going to ask someone to beta read your piece, you need to be willing to beta read back. And if you are partners, you're going to exchange manuscripts. Now, where do you find, maybe you're thinking, this is great, love the advice, no idea where to find a beta reader, no idea where to find a critique partner. Nope, got nothing. I have an answer for you. Ready? Facebook groups have groups for almost every genre of writing, and there are groups specifically for beta reading and critique partners. Find you a Facebook group, or join the local writer group for the genre or the age category or whatever of what you're writing. And then pick 2 to 3 partners, people that you feel you could trust your work with. There are bad critique partners. If you want a video on how to tell the difference between a good critique partner and beta readers, this applies to both, and a poor, bad, damaging beta reader or critique partner, let me know in the comments below, and I will make that video for you. But make sure that there's somebody that you trust your work with, and then give them your work and be willing to do it back. And when you get your work back, I'm throwing in tip number 8. As an interpreter, we critique. I was an interpreter. I still hold a license for interpreting. But as an interpreter, we critique each other all day long. And some people are fantastic at giving critiques that don't cause offense, and some people aren't. And some people are wonderful at taking advice and applying it, and some people aren't. And some people, even when you have the perfect situation where this person's really good at giving advice and this person's really good at taking advice, sometimes the advice hurts, or sometimes it's not accurate. How do you know the difference? How do you know when, oh, that hurts, but that's really true, or, oh, that was just mean. That's not helpful, or that's not my vision for my story. You want me to take it this direction, and I'm going this way, How do you know the difference between advice you should take and advice you shouldn't, especially when it hurts? The answer is something I said earlier, which is to take a break. Leave it where it is for a few days. Do not think about it. Do not work on your piece. Do not start editing with their advice. Leave it after you've read their advice. Leave it for a few days and then come back and look at your work as objectively as you can and say, is this a mistake? Is this something they're catching that I'm not? Is this something where I made a mistake in who I chose to read my stuff? I have done that before, and that's okay. And at the end of the day, that's one person's opinion, and you can chalk it up to that and move on, or you can use that and leverage that advice to make you better. Because really the goal is to be one step better every day. So go write. Get one step better today. And I'm excited to see what you guys have. Share it with me in the comments. Share your Pixar prompt with me. I'd love to read them. I hope that you are all having a beautiful day. I love you all. And I'll see you in the next video.